I'm back, and we are on chapter 8 of the Tuesday Cafe. I took it with me when I went to see Miss Davis. She was so excited when I told her I had written an entire story and read it in front of the class. She even gave me a hug. Then she asked me what was wrong. I guess she could tell that she was the only excited person in the room, so I handed her my story and asked her to read it. She did. I asked her what she thought, and she said pretty much the same thing Dell and Deborah and everyone else said last night. What a bummer that was. I'm not even in the story, I said. How can it be about me when I'm not even in it? Well, you did write it, she said. Perhaps there is a bitterness inside you towards some of your classmates that came out on its own in your story. I mean, it's very good, she went on, after I didn't say anything for about 2 minutes. It's very funny and imaginative. It's also very accurate. I know some of the people you talk about, and you hit the nail right on the head with all of them. She was trying to make me feel good. I hate it when people do that. I mean, if they really wanted to make you feel good, they wouldn't have made you feel so bad in the first place. So I let her have it right back. But it's full of bitterness and spite, because even though there's no character in there with my name or even a slight resemblance to me, it's about me, right? Somehow it's about me. I was feeling really ticked off. Last night after class, Josh said the exact same thing to me. He said that whenever you write something down, a little bit of yourself goes with it, no matter what you want it to or not, whether or not you want it to or not. I said, okay, fine. Where is Dell in that little thing she wrote? Which character is she? Sarah the killer? Doctor? Cricket? Paul the louse? That's a little bit different, he said. She was following someone else's script. You invented your own. Oh, of course, I said. That's different. I am just suggesting that you may have some resentment inside that has to come out, said Miss Davis, who I am suddenly getting very tired of very quickly. Maybe writing is a way of exploring that. So now I'm an explorer all of a sudden. What does she want me to do? Seek new frontiers? Boldly go where no kid my age has ever gone before? It's a stupid story I wrote in a stupid writing class. Now everyone sees it as my autobiography. I went home, and for the first time since I started going, Mom asked me what I'd been doing at the cafe. She still uses that goofy French accent of hers when she says cafe. It's really starting to make me sick. I told her I didn't have anything to show her. The last thing I needed is her expert analysis. You know your essay is due in 2 weeks, she said. You better get started on it. Like she cares if I get it done or not. I heard her talking on the phone the other night, and all I heard her say about me was, oh, Harper, he's fine. Oh yeah, that's all behind him now. He's doing well at school again. Ben is thinking of taking him skiing this Christmas, if he can get the time off. He's been so busy lately. Blah, blah, blah. I'm fine, am I, Mom? I'm doing well at school again? When was the last time I did well at school? Grade 4? No, I almost failed grade 4 because I didn't get along with the teacher. He said I was a spoiled brat because I got a ride to school instead of taking the bus. Grade 2? No, it wasn't grade 2. You went with Dad to some seminar or something in Europe and decided to stay for 6 weeks and left me with some nanny who couldn't fluff a pillow without taking a belt of gin first. Kindergarten? Maybe it was kindergarten. I don't seem to recall any difficulties there. I guess maybe you're right, Mom. I'm sorry. I haven't done well at school before in kindergarten. I did very well. I learned my alphabet and everything. Best of all, I still remember most of it. And Dad's taking me skiing? But only if he can get the time off, right? Okay, well, I won't hold my breath, because the last time Dad thought of taking me somewhere was when we were going to go canoeing, but something came up, didn't it? I can't remember. Oh, yes, I do remember. He went with someone else. That's right. He went with Dr. Copperton instead. Dad couldn't get any time off to go during the entire 2 months that I was out of school in the summer, but every one of his patients canceled all their appointments during the first week of September, and he went with Dr. Copperton. Just my luck. Oh well, maybe next life. Gosh, that must have been hard on poor old Dad, making all these plans to get away with his son, only to have to change them all around to meet the needs of his patients. He's such a dedicated man. And when he's not handing out medication or checking old people's blood pressure, he's at meeting after meeting, rally after rally, representing his town as the top vote getter in the latest municipal election. He really is an inspiration to us all. I am very impressed, almost as much as I am with the startling insight and scintillating communication skills of my new friends at the cafe. Speaking of them, I wonder what they will accuse me of next. Maybe they'll call me a thief because I wrote about a kid who wanted to break into his own house, or a delinquent because I wrote about kids under 21 smoking cigarettes. If they do, I'll have to tell them that I already have been called a delinquent in my life, so they will have to come up with something better. I didn't say a word to Mom the whole time we were driving from our house to the cafe in the city. I didn't pretend to read or anything. I just sat there, hoping she would get the message. When we got there, she said, well, checking her short and sassy hairdo in the rearview mirror. Same time, 9 o'clock? No, I said. We're going all night tonight, sort of a dusk to dawn thing, like the movies. She just shook her head and shifted the car into drive. A very astute woman, my mother. Maybe if I wrapped myself in fabric and put a sales sticker on my forehead, she'd notice me. Of course, she'd try to talk me down in price first, or look for a better deal somewhere else. Chapter 9. I sat beside Dell again, but I made it pretty clear that I was ticked off with her. She asked me if I wanted a Coke, and I just said no. Not, no thanks, or anything like that, just no. I didn't even look at her when I said it. I just sat there with my arms folded and stared at my desk. Then Susan came by with some chocolate chip cookies she had made and asked me if I wanted one. No thanks. I'm full of resentment. Maybe next week. That got her all flustered. She began acting like a little bird again, fluttering around my desk and chirping away about how she burned most of the cookies and it was a new recipe, so they probably would not have turned out anyway. Then she apologized for offering them to me. Her face was as red as a wagon. I told her it wasn't her or her cookies I was mad at, but she didn't believe me. She went and sat down and didn't offer them to anyone else. Billy made her feel better, though. He walked over and took about 6 of them. Then Lou leaned over and scooped a couple off the plate. He would need about 20 to fill his gut. I know that's not a nice thing to say, but that's the way I'm feeling tonight. I don't like any of these people anymore. Aren't we in a lovely mood today? Said Dell after Susan left. I didn't know we were a couple, I said. What's the matter with you? Somebody beat you up at school? Oh, is that something else my story is about, being a weakling? If all you guys are so observant, what are you doing in this nut house learning how to write? You should be out working somewhere. My, you better pick up that bottom lip of yours before somebody trips over it. We'll never hear the end of it if that happens. What? You're pouting. Don't you know you're pouting? It's written all over your face. I'm not pouting. Sure you are. Hey, Lou, come over here. Does he look like he's pouting to you? Don't call Lou, I said. I can see from here, said Lou, cookie crumbs falling all over his shirt. I've driven over speed bumps smaller than that bottom lip of yours. There, see? Lou thinks you're pouting. Lou's wrong. How about Deborah? Deborah, come over here. Does he look like he's pouting to you? Deborah was the absolute last person I wanted involved with this. She would turn my mood into another game of 20 questions. But after Dell called her, she walked over and practically stuck her nose right in my face. What are you pouting for? She said. I'm not pouting, I said. I uncrossed my arms and sat up a bit in my chair. Dell thinks you're pouting. So does Lou, said Dell. I think so too, said Deborah. Great. Can we get a few more people over here? Maybe someone from down the hall, I said. What are you pouting for? Asked Deborah again. Nothing. Are you mad because we didn't like your story? I don't care about what you like. Maybe you'd like to do it again. I don't think so. Have you ever been invited to a party before? Am I under arrest here or what? What's with all the questions? I just want to know if you've ever been invited to a party before. Everybody was just sort of sitting or standing around waiting for Deborah and me to finish our scintillating conversation. There's that word again. Even Josh was just standing at the front of the room, pretending to sort some papers. Dell was looking at me like I was going to break down or something. No, I haven't, I said. Are you happy now? No, said Deborah, rubbing her stomach all of a sudden. I have a stomach ache. I ate too much spaghetti for supper. She stuck out her tongue for dramatic effect, as if she was going to barf. Then Josh started the class. He told us, tonight is an open night, so you can write about anything you want. Everybody got pretty excited about that. Patty stopped the Anne Murray tape she plays on her Walkman every class and shouted, It's about time! With a big grin on her face. Billy pounded his desk 3 times with his fist. Then, in a typical bad acting fashion, he rubbed his hand and winced, as if he had just put it through a brick wall. I guess these open nights were something pretty special. In a flash, Billy and Patty had joined together with Lou and were looking at the latest edition of the Popsicle Journal to find out what they wrote about last month. I could hear them talking. Billy wanted to write about horses. He had seen one on television last night, and that, in his words, would just not leave my mind. You dreamt about a horse last night? Said Lou, who was helping himself to more of Susan's cookies. Maybe he was going to eat 20 of them. As a matter of fact, no, I didn't, said Billy. I dreamt about canoeing down a river in a boat, but when I got to the other side, there was a horse waiting for me. So maybe I did dream about a horse last night. I guess it depends on when I actually got to the other side of the river. I'm going to dream about these cookies, said Lou. He was starting to go through them pretty quickly. Susan took that as the compliment it was, and became all fluttery again and blushed, and told Lou that she could make him some more if he really wanted, but he would have to wait 2 weeks because she was working every night for the next 7 days. I'll wait, said Lou. Then Susan went to the library to look for some recipe books. Deborah pulled a book from her purse and started to read. It was a mystery, naturally. There was always lots of questions in a mystery, and when Josh asked what she planned on writing about tonight, she told him that as soon as she was finished reading, she was going to write a mystery of her own. Dell started on a letter she wanted to get done. I figured I may as well start my stupid essay. I couldn't get going on it, though. I didn't know how to start, and besides, I felt like I wanted to talk first. I felt like this before, but I never really had anyone around to say anything to. Plus, I felt kind of bad about barking at Dell and everyone the way I did. Did you ever get invited to parties? I said to Dell. It took her about a millisecond to forget about her letter. Me? Oh, sure, I was always invited to parties. My mom wouldn't let me go, though. She thought I would get into trouble. Did you ever go anyway? No, but I still got into trouble. I had my first child when I was 16. That's 1 year older than I am right now, I said. I thought for a second about me being someone's dad, not a pretty picture. Pretty young, isn't it? She turned out okay, though. I don't know how, but she did. All my kids are okay now, and I have a wonderful husband who has a job, and I go to church. That's all I need. I thought about something for a minute. Then I said, Why did you get pregnant? Dell looked at me. I mean, why did I go out? Sorry, you mean, why did I go out and do exactly what I knew my mother was afraid of me doing? Yeah, I wanted to get back at her. Stupid, isn't it? I get back at my mother by having a baby. That's why I started that fire, I said. I thought you said you started it because no one cared. I may have said that, but I knew my parents would care. My dad is a town councilor. Of course he would care if his son set a fire in the new high school. My mom is a businesswoman. She talks to people in town every day. She'd care if I set a fire. So they would care, but not about you. Is that what you're saying? That's it, I said. And did it work? Did you get back at them? Are you kidding? The only reason my dad isn't prime minister is because the newspapers didn't print my name. Mom probably had the best month of business in her life. There were people coming to the house to try on her dresses. Everybody felt so sorry for them. It was sickening. Uh-huh. And you're left with an essay to write, and I was left with a baby. You know what we should have done? We should have gotten our parents and said, Hey, I've got something I want to say to you. Sit down and hear me out. I don't think that would have worked, I said. I'll bet it would. I found that out as soon as I became a mother. The baby would want something. She'd cry, and I'd get it for her. When she became a toddler, she'd start pulling on my pant leg or yapping about this or that, and I'd know she wants something right away. But as soon as she became a teenager, the messages stopped coming. She wouldn't say anything to me anymore. I had to tell her, Listen, if you've got a problem, come to me and tell me what it is. Otherwise, knock it off. I'm not a fortune teller. You want me to look in a crystal ball every time you're in a bad mood? You better buy me the ball first so I can look at it. My daughter thought I was crazy. She said, You think I'm going to buy you a crystal ball with my allowance? Did it work? She's not pregnant. She has a job. She has a boyfriend. She finished school. I don't think that would work with my parents, I said. You might be surprised, said Dell. I would have to be very surprised, I said. I ended up writing this stupid thing called A Letter to Mom and Dad. It was Josh's idea. He came and asked us how we were doing, and Dell told him about everything we were talking about. I don't know why mothers do that all the time. It's like if they're going to say anything, they have to say everything. Anyways, Josh suggested that I write a letter. You have to write the essay, right? So tonight you can practice writing about your family. Write about anything you want, but make it about them. So I wrote the letter. It went like this. Dear Mom and Dad, hi, how are you? I'm fine. Well, not really, but my head's not falling off or anything, and I haven't started a fire in almost a month, so that's good. I am writing you this letter because my teacher said I should. Actually, I'm writing this because Dell, this woman I sit beside in my writing class, said she would sick Deborah and Susan on me if I didn't. They are these two women in my class. Deborah is the world's greatest question asker, and Susan likes to comment on everything everyone says. She bakes good cookies, though, so I've heard. It could be worse. She could have sent Lou over to sit on me, or asked me to go to the movies with Billy and see how long it takes us to get driven home in a police car. Anyways, I'm writing this letter to let you know that I'm not a delinquent or stupid or lazy, and that I didn't start that fire to burn the school down. I just feel really empty. I know that's not a reason to start a fire, but it's how I feel. Bye for now. Hope to see you soon. Say hi to the kids. Harper. Chapter 10. The next day was another meeting with Miss Davis, meaning it was another day where I had to go to her office and sit outside her door until whoever was inside meeting with her before me left, and then wait some more until she invited me in with that big, happy smile of hers that I was starting to get really tired of. So that is what I did. After we sat down, I told her what Dell had said. I didn't tell her, like, listen to this great idea someone told me. I'm going to start telling my parents how I feel. I just sort of told her. She said, I think that's a wonderful idea, and got all excited. I think that is one of those things you can put in your essay, that you were going to start communicating more effectively with your parents. I got out my pen and wrote that down. Communicate more effectively with my parents. A very fancy phrase, if you ask me. You got any more of those? I said. You try that one first, she said. The next thing I did was I showed her my letter. I just reached into my pocket and handed it to her. She didn't know what it was, but then she read it, and you could tell she was surprised. I mean, it's not like I'd bared my soul or anything, but compared to crying over an imaginary dog, it was quite a step. Have you shown your mom and dad this? She said. Are you kidding? I think they need to see this. I think they'd rather see me on a bus to the North Pole. Harper, give your parents some credit. They don't know what to do with you. I talk to them on the phone every week. Your mother keeps saying, have you come up with anything yet? They're worried about you, Harper. They just have no idea what's going on in your head. They've never told me that. Well, you're not exactly the easiest person to talk to, you know. You've barged out of here every time you've come in. You said yourself you spend most of your time at home in your room. That's because there's no one around to do anything with, I said. I was getting a little ticked off again. It's like, all of a sudden, I'm the problem and my parents have nothing to do with it. Have you ever asked them to do anything with you? Yeah, we go down to the arcade all the time. My dad's a real pinball freak. Mom likes the record store. She goes nuts over rap, especially the guys in the store always tease her because she has her clothes on backwards. I don't get it. Don't get what? I don't get the clothes on backwards bit. What is that supposed to mean? Don't you watch much music? They have videos of these rap bands that wear their clothes backwards. It's their thing. It's like painting their faces or shaving their heads. Miss Davis took a deep breath and looked away from me for a minute. I don't know if she got the thing about the clothes on backwards or not, but she seemed to be reaching the end of her line, patience-wise. But you know what? I didn't care. I mean, what does she think I'm supposed to do? Make my parents my best friends? If she wants me to do that, we may as well end these little meetings of ours right now. What about at school? She said. She seemed to be okay again. Do you ever ask anyone to do things with you at school? I don't have to ask anyone to do anything with me at school. They do it to me anyways. Last week, Darren Talbot ripped 2 chapters out of my math book. I had to look through every garbage can in the school before I could study for my test. Then everybody wonders why I fail all the time. Are you as sarcastic and distant with your classmates and parents as you are with me? I looked at her to see if she was joking. Then I looked around the office to see if maybe someone else had slipped in behind me. Nope. What? I said. I wasn't being sarcastic. She was asking me stupid questions, so I was giving her stupid answers, just like the rule says. You can be very sarcastic with people, Harper, and very distant. You stay in your room at home. You eat lunch by yourself at school. You don't take part in any extracurricular activities. But look at the way things are going for you at this writing class. You're making friends. You're being creative and introspective. I was talking to your instructor there the other day, and he said you were doing fine. So what is it? Why are you doing so well there and not anywhere else? Maybe it's because half of them can't tie their own shoes, I said. Then I really wish I hadn't said it. I thought about Deborah eating those stupid rice cakes so she wouldn't get a rash. And Patty sitting there in her own little desk listening to her music. She smiles at me every class now, and last week she walked up to me and said, "You can sit beside me now if you want," which is a very long way from "you're in my seat." And she hasn't said one more thing about the clothes I wear, which I take to be a compliment. I don't know why, I said. I was feeling pretty lousy all of a sudden. Well, think about it, said Miss Davis. You could tell she was a little upset. Chapter 11. When I got home after school, Mom and Dad were sitting at the kitchen table waiting for me. I walked into the kitchen and saw them and just about fainted. I hadn't seen Mom and Dad sitting at the kitchen table waiting for me to come home from school since my grandma died 8 years ago. Did someone die? I said. I got a little bit scared just thinking about it. Mom shook her head and Dad rolled his eyes. Your mother sprained her ankle at work today. He said, she can't walk. I looked a little bit closer at Mom and saw that her face was all white. She looked sick, and if you want to know the truth, her feet were up on one of the chairs. Her right foot had a big bandage on it. How'd that happen? I said. I fell off the stool your father bought me at Christmas last year. I was trying to reach a hat for Gladys Cartwright. Her son is getting married next month. Who's he marrying? Asked Dad. I don't know, said Mom. You could tell she didn't feel like talking about it. Did it hurt? I said. I know it's a stupid question, but what else am I supposed to say? Where's your other shoe? Of course it hurt, said Mom. She seemed to know that it was a stupid question, too. Sprains are more painful than breaks, said Dad, Mr. Authority figure. I wiped that thought out of my head. I wasn't going to be like that tonight, calling my dad names and everything. I was going to be nice, so I could prove to Miss Davis that it was them, not me, who had the problems. It would be hard, especially with Dr. Dad wearing this is very serious face. Even though, when I sprained my finger last summer, my uncle said, you should be more careful when you sit down. Dad laughed for about an hour and never did get anything for me. But this is Mom we're talking about here, and when she gets a hangnail, the world stops until we can find the nail clippers. I've heard that before, I said. Well, the two of you are going to have to do something for supper. I can't stand on my feet, said Mom. Dad looked like a little kid who couldn't find his parents when he heard that. He likes to eat, and Mom is a great cook, but every once in a while she'll come home and say, here, you cook tonight, I'm tired, and Dad will make something. It's usually pretty awful. He made rice once that was so gummy you could blow bubbles with it, and he made a roast beef dinner another time that was so bad Mom threw the whole thing out and cooked another one. We ate supper that night at 11 o'clock. I walked over to the drawer where we have all of our takeout menus and opened it up and said, you want a phone or do you want me to? Dad laughed at that. Even Mom started laughing and shaking her head. My men, she said, what would you do if I ever decided to go away somewhere? Move in at Kelly's, I said. Kelly's is this restaurant in town that serves pretty good food. I like their chicken, and Dad always gets their spaghetti, although I don't know why. Mom makes delicious spaghetti. We decided to order a pizza, and when it came time to choosing the toppings, instead of fighting over pepperoni and mushroom versus the kitchen sink combo, which has everything on it, including a little dough ball at the center in the shape of a kitchen sink, that's the kind I like, we went with the pepperoni and mushroom. Then I said to Mom, you want me to get a salad too? She just about fell off her chair, because normally I turn greener than lettuce when she brings a salad around. It's not because I don't like salad. It's just that when you're a doctor's son, your mother is a health nut, you get things like salad and brown bread rammed down your throat so much you think you're going to choke. But this time, I thought, if I'm going to be nice, I might as well go all the way with it. So I ordered a salad. The other thing I did was, I sat with them through the entire meal. I didn't eat a piece of pizza at the table, pile a few onto a plate, and hit the road to my bedroom. I didn't even turn on the TV in the living room so I could listen to it instead of them. I sat through the entire meal, and finally, when we were almost finished, Dad said, "Is everything okay with you, Harper?" Obviously, they were noticing a difference. With me? Yeah, I think so, I said, as if sitting there with them was something I did all the time. Then Mom got into it. "How are things at school?" she said. "Same," I said, meaning not great. "I passed my math test the other day. I couldn't believe I passed it. It was that test on the 2 chapters that somebody ripped out of my book." "Did you tell the principal about that?" said Dad. He got pretty ticked off when I told him what had happened. I don't know if he was mad because something happened to me or because something is always happening to me, and it doesn't look good on him. I told my counselor. There's not much point in telling the principal. All he'd do is make an announcement and then everyone would know that I'd told him. "How are things going with Miss Davis?" Mom asked. It was the first time she'd ever asked me how things were going with Miss Davis. "Not bad," I said, of course. I was thinking about the note I had written in my writing class. I practically started shaking, I was so nervous. "Is she helping you at all?" Dad asked. He's one of those guys who doesn't really believe in counseling and all that. Not that I do either, but I'm starting to come around a bit, I think. He thinks that if you have a healthy body, you should have a healthy mind. And if you don't have a healthy mind, then what you need to do is go for a jog or do some push-ups or something to clear your head. She told me I should start being nicer to you guys and that you would start being nicer to me. Wow. I said it, and I didn't even know I was saying it. I didn't look them in the eye or anything either when I said it. I was looking at the dishes I was putting in the dishwasher. In fact, if you want to know the truth, I was staring so hard at those dishes I thought they were going to crack. Everything was silent for about a minute. I don't know what they were thinking, but my heart was pounding so loud I thought the neighbors were going to come over and ask me to turn it down. "Is that what this is all about then?" said Mom. She had her "I'm in control" voice on. "You mean supper and everything?" "Yes." "Sort of, I guess." Of course it was. 2 years ago, Mom had her arm in a sling for a week after she hurt her elbow, and I didn't even pour a glass of water for her. Mind you, she blamed me for hurting her elbow. It was my skateboard she stepped on that sent her flying. "What have you been telling her about us?" said Mom. "Not much, really. She just thinks I should start communicating more effectively with you guys." I love that phrase. "She says it's one of those things I could write about in my essay." "And what do you think?" I started to say something, but then I stopped. I couldn't get my mind off that stupid note I wrote, so I decided to give it to them. I went to my coat at the back of the door, dug my scribbler from the cafe out of my pocket, then I went over to them and handed it to Mom. But before I did, I told them what it was. "See, I wrote this note in my writing class the other night. It's not really bad or anything, but I showed it to Miss Davis, and she thought you should see it. That's what got us talking about how I'm feeling and everything." Mom read the note and then passed it to Dad. Then she looked at me right dead in the eye. I thought she was mad at first, but then these big tears started welling up and dropping down her cheeks. I don't see Mom cry very often. She never makes any noise or anything when she's doing it. She just cries a little, then blows her nose, and the whole thing is done with. "I feel empty sometimes too," she said. Well, that got me going. I started blubbering and shaking like those people you see on the witness stand on TV. Pretty soon, we were both crying. I don't know what Dad was doing. He's not the crying type. I'm not even sure if he knew what we were crying about. After a minute or two, he got up and pulled a box of Kleenex from the counter behind me. I grabbed about 6 pieces and started honking away. Then Mom started, and we ended up laughing. We sounded like a flock of geese flying south for the winter. "Good thing Mr. Carson's not home. He'd probably run over here with his rifle and start shooting," I said. "Mr. Carson is this neighbor of ours who goes hunting all the time and always tells us about it." "I don't think he did hit anything," said Dad, who didn't seem to mind my attempts at lightening the mood. "He never seems to come home with anything but a head cold." Mom took a while before she started talking. She dabbed all the tears out of her eyes and blew her nose about 1,000 times. You could tell she was thinking. "I never knew you could write so well," she said. "My mom doesn't compliment people very often, except when they're in her store, where everyone over 10 is beautiful and very wise, and everyone under 10 is adorable and very bright, unless you're Mara Fishburne, this classmate of mine. If you can consider someone you sit beside every day and never say a word to, a classmate, who my mom thinks is just adorable, and who I think is about as bright as a Christmas bulb in mid-June." "You think this is good?" I said. I know I wasn't exactly sticking to the subject of the evening, but I wasn't about to let a comment like that slip away untouched. Well, all I know about writing is, if you can touch a person's heart, it's good, and you have touched my heart with this note, said Mom. It's funny, you know, but Mom is always telling me to look people in the eye when you talk to them. When she said that, she was looking at some speck or something on the kitchen table as hard as I was staring at those dishes. I didn't mean to, I said. I was kind of apologizing. I didn't want to make her cry. Harper, she said, lifting her head so her eyes were back on mine, that was a compliment. You should say thank you when someone gives you a compliment. You accept it. You don't deny it. Believe me, they don't come along every day. Okay, I said. Thank you. You're welcome, she said, and she smiled at me, and I could tell she was thinking that I was not such a lousy kid to spend time with after all, and I must admit, I was kind of thinking the same thing about her and Dad. Now, let's get back to what you said, and we'll be on page 100 next time.